Now we're gonna get really, really, really deep into sports and the future of sports because we're talking about an industry that it's $1 billion industry. Billion. Professional sports from Australia with the Aussie rules to cricket in India to rugby in Europe and Oceania to North American sports like baseball, football, now soccer with the MLS. That's why I'm wearing also the Toronto FC. Big fan. This situation is definitely putting a hard stop. And I know that probably the best example of this and one of the pioneers and saying this is not okay, we need to do our part was the NBA, right? Because I want to see that we know that the first case or the first famous case of player testing positive with COVID was an NBA player, and they made the decision early in the game, in a very assertive decision, in my opinion, to say the NBA is suspended, and that was around March the 10th, and this was a day before the WHO declared COVID-19 a pandemic. So it was very interesting that then the rest of professional leagues follow suit, and I think that that's gonna make a huge change on also NBA being the leaders of this now with talks of Disney, right? Like they wanna do the championship or the season, a short season, on from Disney World, from Orlando. So it's gonna be definitely interesting. There's gonna be a lot of sports trends, and I want to invite a really, really good friend of mine who is not only a sports expert but also have a podcast, and it's called It's Canon Podcast. So he is definitely on top of everything that needs to relate to sports. One thing before I introduce Boris, I want to also give the final results of the survey that we conducted this yesterday on, like, do you think that now sports with no fans, because that's most likely what's gonna happen at the beginning, the sports events are gonna be held with no fans. So what was your opinion? Like, do you think you're gonna enjoy it or not? And surprisingly enough, 82% of the people said no, that we're not gonna be enjoying it. So I would like to hear to everyone who didn't vote but are now, like Trevor there. Hey Trevor, doing the live stream, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, or Instagram. I want to know your opinion on that because it will definitely feel weird. And there's not only conversations about the $1 billion that are going to be lost in ticketing, but also the mood and the feelings of the professional players. Um, it will definitely influence in a way the whole sports experience. So we're gonna add Boris now. I'm gonna see here, go live, who's also gonna give us some of his insights on sport. Let me see if Boris gets there. Hey, also Agnomim. Hey, there you go. Raptors represent. How are you doing, Boris?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Good, good, man. I'm very excited that now most of the leagues are definitely starting to get a plan on how to go back, right? For me, it was super interesting golf because in theory, A, you don't need fans that much. As a matter of fact, you need silence by the time that you're in the putt. But also, golf is a physical distancing sport, right? So what do you think of what's gonna happen on that sense, and golf being one of the pioneers on starting with seasons and professional leagues in general.
So, I guess when we talk about like here in North America, um, you know, some sports here in North America have their plans going. Some sports have already started out in Europe. Bundesliga's already started. Premiership's going to start June 14th. So, they're starting slowly. Pertaining to golf, though, that it makes sense. There's tons of advertising dollars. Every tournament that they don't do, that's billions, millions and millions and millions of dollars that they're dropping just in advertisements. We don't know the contracts that these players even have with their sponsors. If they don't play, are they going to get paid? So there's just so much money being lost down the drain. So, every sport is looking very hard to try to get up and running. Looking down the list in terms of North American sports, golf just makes sense. It's played outside. As you mentioned, you already do need silence. There can be easy protocols put in place for physical distancing. It takes place over one weekend, so it's pretty easy to kind of do the coordination from an operational point of view. The interesting part, though, in golf, though, is going to be every week they play somewhere new. How many courses will they be able to get to, over the week after week after week after week? It's going to become predictable if they stay in one location, which is kind of like what other sports are planning to do. So, purely from a business point of view, from a one weekend point of view, it makes sense that golf is kind of being earmarked as the first sport to get back into it. Closely after that, I can see something like tennis coming back. Tennis is, again, another sport that is typically played in silence as the action is going on. But you have the same issues with tennis, that they play. But having said that, you can play tennis in one location for a long time. It'll be interesting to kind of see how these plans sort of roll out. That's pretty. It'll be. I'm closely following, for obvious reasons. So yeah.
So what's your experience so far with the Bundesliga in Germany?
So here's the thing. So, taking one step back with the whole Bundesliga thing, watching sports in general in no crowd, especially soccer, football, calcio, whatever you want to call it, it's just not the same. One of the major things about football especially is the atmosphere. You've been to a TFC game. You were at the Skydome Champions League game when we faced Beckham. That was just the insane atmosphere. TFC games, it's the atmosphere that makes it. For the longest time, while the team wasn't the best, people talked about the fans, So, watching a Champions League game, especially, recently in my memory, without fans wasn't great. So when they announced that, football was going to be coming back in empty stadiums, I was a little skeptical. But then that first week, 2 weeks ago, watching something live, it was actually awesome. It was really good. So it kind of like it was different. There's less physical contact after a goal. They kind of like high five each other quickly, or bump fists or something. But watching something sports in general it's great for it to be back. A little different, but it's just not the same in the grand scheme of things. Atmosphere is just huge and prevalent and important for sports.
So I was joining yesterday. LinkedIn did a session of what's gonna be with most of the most important producers of sports, right? Like, as we know, and this is going back a little bit of on the podcast idea of the Wait Time podcast that it's gonna be soon. The episodes are gonna be launching on all the platforms. Is that in times of crisis, entertainment, education, and other industries are flourishing because you're stuck in the house. You need to be entertained. And I cannot tell you how many of my friends have been like, I don't know if I'm going to survive. Like, friends, it's been 3 months and you're alive. Mm-hmm. So you're good. And now the whole sports experience and entertainment. I myself, I'm a sports announcer, and I know what it's like, the sports industry. and the sports entertainment experience, especially in at events like the Olympics or the Pan
Yeah,
American Games, right? Like we know that the Olympics was still a doubt the first month of the pandemic if we're going to continue doing it in July or not. But as we know, that has been postponed. So for me, one thing, and I not only say this on behalf of the sports industry, but any other industry, not on behalf, but about the sport industry or about any other industry, the ones who are like the industries are going to survive. Okay. The one who, or like the industry, or better say the businesses that are going to survive are going to be the ones that use innovation as part of their solution.
of course.
And I'm gonna tell you something about the sports that I'm not sure if you have evaluated this, but let's talk about drones. Okay, so now we know that we have the technology. Let's say if you're watching a soccer game in the most popular leagues, you see that they even have that 3D if it was penalty or no, or like was the ball in or out, right? Same like tennis. But think of the potential that a drone can do. And like, I'm just throwing ideas out here. Imagine if like Harry Potter, you're like the snitch, but instead of the snitch, it's gonna be like a drone following the player, and then you can switch an interactive live, not video game, but an interactive live stream with the point of view of that player. Like, how cool would that be? What do you think of like crazy ideas like this one?
That's the thing. We're gonna have to see a lot of these crazy ideas. When it comes to access, if something that has been proven is that people want more access, they want to feel like they're actually in the game. So for the past 20 years or so, especially in the NFL, we're kind of seeing, cameras on strings, literally on top of the players, following the players more, in the action type footage. So over time, that's become something that we've been really wanting to do. Right before this pandemic hit, the XFL came back in its second installment, and what we were seeing was, literally sideline reporters, as players were committing fouls and penalties, they were being interviewed. They had cameras in the locker room, so access has always been a huge thing. So anything that can give us more access has always been a huge plus. Now, when you put in innovation on top of it, that's exactly it. Like you said, it was a crazy idea, but I don't think it'll be a crazy idea. These players will get used to hearing some buzzing around, around them, their heads and whatnot. So for me, it's more like you said, it's a race of who can adapt to technology the most and who can make it as open as humanly possible, taking the element of fandom outside of the inside of the building, moving that to online resources, and online platforms, and how we can include the fans as much, if not even more now that they're watching from home. So I think that's a part of what's stopping a lot of these North American leagues from starting up again. It's okay, we're going to be SOL, there's going to be no fans, but what can we do to make it more interactive? Couple weeks ago, there was a report from Joe Buck. Joe Buck is a Fox commentator, and he was saying that when NFL eventually comes back, even if they have to do empty arena games in September, they're going to literally pump in crowd noises to the feed so that it will feel like a crowd's actually there. So that
Like one of
Fox
those
is,
sitcoms, eh? Like
yeah, that exactly, like a the
live
laugh
audience.
track. Yeah, so they're thinking outside of the box already, and how can we do to make this more interactive and make this feel like as normal as humanly possible? And NFL's, they're ahead of the times when it comes to these types of things a lot of times as well. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what they do. Having said that, the Fox is the network who brought us the neon puck for hockey games because Americans couldn't see a black puck on on white ice. So go figure, right?
Yeah, no, I think that it's just incredible the amount of opportunity that I see. Now,
Yeah.
the live experience as it is, I want to tell you a story. So I was fortunate enough to travel before this all started, and I was in the Maracanã Stadium in Brazil. So in the museum, prior to entering the pitch, there's a storyline of what the Maracana capacity has been, and for
Hmm.
me it was extremely like shocking that at the beginning of the Maracana, that happened the Maracanazo. If you want to
Yeah.
dig a little bit more on that detail, for sure we can chat. But the Maracana's capacity was almost 90,000 people.
Hmm.
And then as you go and progress in the timeline, you see that that capacity is just decreasing, decreasing, decreasing. So at one point I was like, shouldn't be the opposite, because what now stadiums do is when there's like need, then they just expand, right? And just reading through I was practicing my Portuguese, by the way, Boris. reading through the story,
Yeah.
you know what? You know why they were like the capacity was higher? Because they were standing.
Hmm.
People were standing in the stadium, and I'm talking of like in the 20s, 30s, 40s,
Yeah.
50s. So what happened? So that means that commodities and a little bit more of the luxury and the sports experience was transforming, and they say no, now they have to be sitting,
Yeah.
okay, because the game and like people go before the game, etc., right? So the whole sports experience changed and shifted. So what I can anticipate for sports now, it's also something similar, but now think of that. If you are going to be able to afford to go to a stadium, it's going to be like your own booth. You're going to have like
Yeah.
that box experience, and that's definitely a big benefit from the business side of a venue. So I just want to elaborate on that idea on what do you think regarding the live entertainment experience of going to a stadium. I mean, the infrastructure is there, right? Like it will be a waste if you don't use it. What do you think?
So it depends, where in the world you are. The way that we view sports and term machine is very different here in North America as opposed to somewhere like in Europe. And the way that fans kind of see watching the sport. In Europe, when we talk about football premiership, in the 80s, it was a absolute gong show, to say the least. And because of tragedies, they've had to kind of change their philosophy. So when it comes to, standing, they had to change the rules, because of something like the Hillsborough tragedy and things like that. Um, and so, they've had to install, take away terraces and install seating and things like that. So, and in Europe, for the most part, especially football, it's kind of go watch what you have to do. It's about the team, it's about the game. It's not about the entertainment spectacle per se. Um, Whereas here in North America, it is about the show. When you go to a Raptors game, for example, you go watch the game. Yeah, that's fun, but there's always music playing. There's cheerleaders. There's games in between. During commercial breaks, it's more of a spectacle. It's more of a show. It's more of the game is just part of the entire experience. So here in North America, I can for sure see that your theory becoming something more true, where we might start seeing more private boxes. We might start seeing more groups. Group seating, and outside of your group, you're gonna be physically distanced, things like that. And then it's going to be, how can we make it more entertaining for people? So it'll be interesting to kind of see how they expand and they kind of do that. Whereas in Europe, I can still see them kind of being, it's all about the sport. Get in, get out. We can make our money through ticket sales and whatever ticket sales we have. And I think that's just the entire mentality. Like, the billions of dollars. Not to say that, you know, there's not billions of dollars in TV deals. The Premiership has some of the biggest TV deals in the world. But, you know, we just see things differently here in North America, you know, whether it's capitalists or whatever. We just see it more as a spectacle than anything else, as opposed to the actual sport for what it is. So
No,
I can see your theory becoming true, but I can also see, you know, because of health and safety, they're going to be forced to do that. So they're going to try to capitalize. You know, if they're going to have to take away one every 5 seats, how can we get that money back without people really noticing too much?
well, that brings another question, Boris. So we're talking about the live experience, right? Like the venue experience, and having the fans and having the whole package. You go there earlier, you perhaps have a gathering, perhaps a couple of beverages before the game with a group of people that you go, or you go by yourself, and that's totally cool. I want to also give you a little bit of my experience. So I come from El Salvador, same like you, and going to a sports event there, it's the entertainment combined with the passion of sports, that I think that
Mm-hmm.
that the passion of sports is like a universal sentiment, because you're fanatic and then you love your team. But coming, for example, to North America, the first time that I came, I was like, whoa, like it felt luxury. It felt
Exactly.
luxurious. I felt like I was in a hotel, but it was an arena. And because everything was very like, you know, like signage, there were like ushers, uh, people did not interrupt in between uh, plays. Everything was extremely controlled in terms of like the audio, everything, like the whole
Yeah.
thing was like so staged in a way.
That's exactly it.
And then, and then I went to the Camp Nou, and that was completely different. Nothing like Latin America, nothing like North America. It was like, the best way to describe it is as if I was in a theater, because people were sitting, were like watching the game, paying attention, and then when a good play came, people stood up, and then whether it was goal or no, people applaud
So
applauded. And that was like, for me, holy moly, like the completely right. And I know that Natalie, for example, here is joining us from Germany. Shout out to Shivas, to Scott, also Sam, Hannah, and please, by all means, everyone who's joining us through the live stream, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, you can also give us your opinion. So going back to that experience, so there's three different experiences that Aussie rules, for example, in Australia is a completely
yeah,
different one that goes
yeah,
beyond the pitch, I would say. But the whole thing is like, okay, so now probably, because the space is going to be limited for now. Like I'm not saying that this is gonna be forever, but this is definitely gonna be changing the history of sports and live entertainment. That what I think that is going to be in common is the medium. So if you're not getting to the venue, then you're probably gonna be consuming that sports and entertainment through a screen, like you and I are doing it right now. So what is the future of broadcasting? That is something that you and everyone has to have a strong opinion of how is this going to be shaped. Because listen to this. So if we know that, you know, 80 or 60% of the people who were used to go to a venue, assuming that the venue capacity is going to be reduced for a while, now they have to be consuming this through broadcast or some other form of online technology or digital technology. But remember that in that point, you're not only competing with sports, in other sports, but you're also competing with theater, with online streaming, with YouTube live and YouTube content, right? So there's definitely a huge challenge for the broadcast. And again, I'm not saying that it's going to die, because it won't, but everyone has to be creative and innovating on how they're gonna do. What do you think of that that idea that, you know, broadcast is gonna have it hard?
Well, I think that part of it is going to be difficult. I feel sorry for the actual commentators. They're going to probably be told to have less silence, you know, while they're talking, so that no one notices the lack of actual atmosphere. And the reason why, and I know that that is a fact, because right now wrestling is happening here in North America. You have WWE and you have AEW, both being filmed in Florida in front of empty arenas. Wrestling is all about the atmosphere as well. So, you know, maybe even more so professional wrestling, that is. And so, you know, I think that one of the major things that I noticed during the broadcasts has been, you know, the commentators have been continuously talking. They've been trying to fill any dead air humanly possible, so that, you know, we don't notice that there is, you know, a lack of a crowd. So I think that's number one. You have the commentators having to step up their game, and you know, the banter is gonna obviously have to be there. You're gonna have more educated commentators as well to fill in that time, to speak about whatever it is they're going to have to talk about. Then you come, you know, looking at this from a director, kind of putting the entire broadcast together. And I think you have the question is, okay, so we have the commentators constantly talking. We have the game still happening. What are we going to do to bookend the show? You know, right now we have analysis happening, and sometimes even too much analysis happening here in North America.
Yeah.
So, you
Statistic,
know,
right?
yeah, it's all about
It's all
stats here
about
in North
numbers.
America, and that's the NFL for you. That the NFL started that trend. It's all numbers, and then you have baseball, which is, you know, again, it's all about the history and whatnot. So, you know, I can see that, you know, being a pivotal part as well. So I can see on having more back and forth, more roundtables. One thing that I've noticed though, and I think it's going to become the normal, and I know I'm kind of jumping back and forth a lot, is this right here: Facebook Live, Instagram Live, YouTube, things like that, Skype, Zoom. We're kind of getting used to the quality of this video. And I think we're not going to notice that, you know, you'll be able to, a booker will be able to book someone who typically wouldn't be able to join for one reason or another, but now they'll just be able to easily zap them in, even easier, because we're used to this lower quality of content going through our TV. So they'll be able to bring in more guests, more educated people to talk about whatever game is happening, you know, during the pre-show and during the post-show. So that's, you know, I think that using technology in that sense is going to help for sure. So then the director, you know, we've talked about the commentators during the game. We've talked about the pre-show, post-show. Now let's talk about the actual game. Because the commentators are constantly going, the focus is still going to have to be on a sport. So now the director is going to have to make sure that from a visual point of view, we don't notice that there's no atmosphere. So we're going to probably see more zoomed in plays, and we're going to be seeing, going back to our previous conversation, in action plays. So again, you don't want to notice this huge cavernous building, regardless of whether it's a $15,000 or 15,000 person arena or 100,000 person stadium. So we're going to probably see closer zoomed in plays, aerial views, and things like that. And again, more banter with the commentators, more sideline reporting and things like that, to kind of make us forget that, hey, there's nothing missing, you know, there, so that we don't really notice it. And this is all something, these are things that wrestling shows are already doing. They're changing the style. They've had to change even how they film, so that you don't notice that things are missing, you know. And that's North America. But when we look at Europe and Asia, for example, look at the North Korean or the South Korean football team that got fined for putting sex dolls out as fans, you know, because they didn't really change the cameras. So in order to make it look less cavernous, they put sex dolls out there. Sure,
They're
in the
gonna
Bundes,
they're gonna be starting playing on green screens.
yeah, that's exactly it. I would not put it past a North American team to put green felt out there and simulate a crowd. Watch the NFL do that. I'm gonna bet my money that the NFL is gonna try to do that. And then yeah, going back to Bundesliga, they put like cardboard cut out of fans again so that you don't see that anything is missing. And I'm not talking the entire stadium, just the camera views, because they
Mhm.
don't want you to think that anything's missing. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are just are happy that we're starting to get back to normal and even though this brave new world and the new ways that we are starting to do things, it's cool that hey, that we can adapt a little bit and forget for a couple of hours that the world is literally on fire outside.
It's so interesting, and for those who are just joining, we are talking about the future of sports in this live stream of Wait Time, and right now Mark has just joined also from Germany. So Mark also, as a big Freiburg fan, he's telling us over here that he has experienced the Bundesliga. So Mark, we would like to hear in the comments as well, what is the experience like in Germany, that you are specifically there, and how this new experiences is being living. What are the comments? What is the people saying around? Because I think that, like Boris, you were saying about the cameras, right? Have you played on Twitch? You know what Twitch is?
No, no, oh, of course I know what Twitch is. I don't do live streaming. I don't know. To me, that's still something that, even though I produce a podcast, release a podcast every week, I'm still a little, I get the heebie-jeebies about having people watch me play. Even right now, I feel absolutely uncomfortable, and you wouldn't realize it. But, it's something about, you have to put yourself out there. So I don't do Twitch.
Yeah.
I have come across, when I used to live with Mike, he used to watch Twitch streamers and esports. So yeah, I'm very well accustomed to that world.
Because that's definitely part of the conversation here, right? And I learned about, it's Twitch. I play video games. I play FIFA, but that's about it. But I know that there's a
Yeah.
sub world in the video games that I wasn't aware of, and
Oh
my
yeah.
good friend, our good friend Anton, introduced us to Twitch, because they were doing with their band the Artful Vandals live streaming. So I was like, Twitch, like that. First of all, the name is just like, are you twitching, bro? Right. So for me, it's very catchy. And then I started like getting into the world of Twitch, and the whole thing is like you have different angles. Like everyone's playing, and everyone's just like giving their commentator. It's a whole experience. So that
Mm-hmm.
with fantasy football and all these virtual games, virtual sports, it's incredible that is driving right now the video games. So we're not far from that driving the experience. That not necessarily myself, if I see an audio laugh or audio cheer of the fans or a green screen, I'm gonna spot the fakeness right away, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna feel it like it's fake. I was like, no.
Yeah.
Instead, what I would prefer is just to get some creative ideas on what it's going to be like, right? I know that, let's say 15 years ago, they opened the locker rooms, right? For media, because they wanted to see like what it was like, right? I was watching last night the documentary on Netflix about Michael Jordan. I don't know if you've seen
Yeah.
that, the Chicago Bulls,
Yeah.
and the legendary face that they had. And so like they were
Yeah.
at the beginning of MJ's career, they didn't have the locker rooms, right? So it was just so bizarre, like how ugly the lockers looked, like dirty, and like the camera was there, and it was like, oh my god, I can smell it from there, right? So that's how everything has been evolving. And for me, I think that now we have an opportunity, as in supposed to, it's like fake meat. Here's the connection, boys. You can imitate the flavor of meat, but instead, or you can do a margarita pizza that doesn't need meat. So what's the difference? Is that one thing you're not complementing, or like the absent of, but instead you're being creative and trying a different thing. right?
Hmm.
I just want to make a shout out to Nova. It says that she said, I'm watching Bundesliga right now. Bayern Munich is winning with the
Finally.
Dusseldorf 5-0, and broadcasting is great. Thank you very much, Nova, that you're doing multitasking, because that's what's going to be the future, right? I think it has to do also with the attention. As we said, you gotta now sports broadcasting more than ever are gonna be competing against other media.
So overall, yeah, but I think we're seeing that regardless of this brave new world or not. It's just accelerated 1,000% right now. You know, it's. I think that we were heading in that direction anyways. A lot of these sports broadcasters were trying to figure out how they were going to take advantage of this, of this being social media and everything that it involves, and kind of seeing where they can take it. But now they're going to be forced to, and they're going to be 100% forced to. Like, I can see one of the things being, hey, there's your game going on. You can watch it on your TV or on your computer. They're going to be having like an interactive chat. Like, you can have a host completely outside of the TV broadcast, only for social media, that you can have this back and forth conversation with one screen on the TV, the other screen on social media, and that's two revenue streams. At the end of the day,
Agreed.
they're gonna be doing this for the money. Let's be honest here. They're not doing this for our entertainment. They're doing this for the money. So if they can get one revenue stream from the TV, one revenue stream from social media, it's going to equal more merchandise, more attention, more interest, a lot of things for the team. So that's what we're kind of seeing right now. And going back to what you were saying, like, don't you remember how grungy the Santa Tecla Stadium was? Like, that, you would never see anything like that here, because here
It was scary.
everything
It
needs
was
to be.
scary.
It really was. It was like a dungeon before you got out to the seats, the
The pitch.
bleachers. It was
Yeah.
hilarious. But here you would never see that, mainly because it's all about the appearances and how it's going to look on TV. Notice a TFC broadcast. Now they take you back, not to the locker rooms, but when the players walk out. And notice the production that they even have there. The red lights, the beautiful room, the see-through glass, the plexiglass, so that the fans who are in the VIP lounge can see the players come out. They don't do that for the actual fans. They do that so that we can get that perfect camera shot of the players coming out with the beautiful light and this and that. So all these things have already been happening, and we've slowly been getting accustomed to it. But now it's going to be tenfold, and who knows how this is going to change in terms of a broadcast. But that's kind of like, we're already seeing the change. Now it's just
And
going to
it, like,
be
mhm. Go ahead. Go ahead.
expedited. Yeah, just going to say it's just going to be expedited.
It's an exponential growth. This has definitely accelerated technology. And think of also augmented reality, right? Like, that
Hmm.
is also that something that is evolving. And when you were saying that they're gonna have like I don't know if you probably play House Party. No, yeah, House Party, is it? No, the one that you watch Netflix with your friends, and then you have a sidebar with
Yeah,
to chat.
I know
Hey,
it,
I
but yeah,
invited you, but you didn't accept my request
exactly.
anyway. We were watching I think it was the Green Book or something like that. Oh no, the Irishman. That one was watching. Anyway, so it's so distracting. Like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like, am I paying attention to the movie, or am I paying attention to what's happening on the side with the conversation? But hear me out. As you mentioned, Boris, the streams of revenue, right? I attended to another conference too this past week with Javier Javier Garcia. He's one of experts of Mexico sports and entertainment marketing, and he's saying, right, like, at the end of the game, at the end of the day, it's all about the like, fans always say that the corporation just care about the business, but at the end of the day, it's part of the business for you to have a safe experience inside the stadium, good streaming if you're not in the venue, right? So yes, it's about business, and I completely agree. Now, the fact that you need to identify and sort of like throw the line. This is business. This is the sport itself. What do you, I feel like you're in a different opinion. Tell me about it.
No. I'm not really in a different opinion. I think that it goes hand in hand. You know, if you have a negative fan experience, if a fan gets trampled on, if a fan something happens to them, it's gonna be a black eye for the actual team, which is then going to hurt revenue dollars. You know, so what I'm trying to say is the bottom line is money. We're part of the equation. The atmosphere, the fans, we're part of the equation. But at the end of the day, you know, they're after as much money as humanly possible. But we are part of the equation. Somewhere in their whiteboard of you know, dollar signs at the very top, and how we can make more dollar signs. Fans are in there. Fan safety obviously is important. You know, but yeah,
Look at my sticker there.
it's not exactly. Exactly. So, you know, so like I said, if you know, if fan gets injured or fan drops, you know, off the railing or something like that happens, it's not going to be a positive thing for the team. And then they could, like I said, they could lose a sponsor over it. They could lose, you know, be forced to play a game behind closed doors or something like that. It's so they obviously have to take that into consideration. You know,
Absolutely.
it's so that's that was the point that I was trying to make earlier. It's not that they don't care about us. It's that, let's be honest here, that they care about us because of their bottom line.
Yeah. Hey, I want to send a shout out to I am Rishu. So please give us your name also and where are you watching so we can mention you. And Barak and Michael Pimpao also, who has just joined. We're talking about the future of sports. We only have 5 minutes, Boris. I don't want to leave without mentioning a little bit of what's going to happen with the players, pretty much like well-being, mental health, what's gonna be like with the trust of the fans overall, and also because we know that in order for big sport events to hire the bigger stars, bringing you the best broadcast experience, investing in all this technology that we're talking about, they need sponsors, right? So what do you think in terms of like the mental health and the pressure that professional players have are used to, and they have it in their DNA that they're used to play with pressure, right? Pressure of the people,
Yeah.
pressure of the fans, pressures of the opposite team. But what about the pressure? And we all know that that's probably one of the pressures that they don't handle well is with the administrative pressure. So now with this, they're probably gonna be like, oh my God, like we don't have anyone cheering for us, and now we're gonna be like, okay, the general manager is really my boss. So I wanna go through that psychology. What do you think that's gonna happen? And lastly, also how also advertisers and investors are saying like, okay, live events, including sports and entertainment, are not dead. And how can we reactivate this? Go.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of the pressures of the athletes themselves, obviously the pressure is going to be much higher. You know, they are not only have to worry about competing at the highest possible level at the drop of a dime, but you have to take into consideration their actual physical health. You know, what mentality they're going to be in even going into the arena. You know, what additional testing are they going to have to do and screening are they going to have to do? That and hey, when I'm playing a sport, is one of the camera guys, is one of the announcers, or one of the teammates, someone from the opposing team, are they going to give me COVID-19? You know, so there's a lot of just on the surface of things, a tons of pressure added there. So you know that could take back on the overall, you know, their ability to perform just off the get go. But then you also have the pressures of, hey, you know, the overall plan here is that in North America that they're going to be playing outside of a couple hub cities like Florida's or something like that. NHL might even use Toronto as a hub city. So being stuck in a hotel room under lock and key, basically, what pressure are they going to have? You know, these are I'm sure that's going to get on them as well. And I'm not trying to say like, oh, poor babies or anything, but you know, we
No.
haven't even been able to be in quarantine for 2 months without people going ape, so we have to think about these athletes as well, that hey, they're going to be, most of them are going to be completely away from their families for months at a time now, shut away, only seeing the same people over and over. I feel sorry for if I don't get along with for the people who don't get along with their teammates. These are people that they're going to have to be even closer with now, in quarantine with, to a certain extent, in the same hotel months at a time. And you're not going to be traveling, so you're always going to see them. So there's a lot of things that you have to consider, in terms of the mental health of an athlete. And then just the amount of pressure that they're going to have. Hey, you know, our job now is it's always been to entertain the public, but now we have to entertain them and make them forget that, the world is literally burning out now. So, we have to make kind of put on the best possible game humanly possible under all of these circumstances. And I'm sure that it's going to take a toll on some of these players. Having said that, the almighty dollar speaks. So if I'm going to put my health at risk, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to do that, and not saying I agree with this, but I
Mhm.
know that these players are going to be asking for more money. Whether they deserve it or not is a whole other conversation. But at the base of it, they have more pressures, they have more uncertainty, they have health concerns now. You know, they're going to be asking for more.
They're
So
gonna
then,
be asking for one. Okay, so we
so
only
then,
have
then
a
that
few seconds left. Boris, thank you very much. And Monica over there has just joined. Gab also on Facebook. Shout out to Val, Abby, Corey, Anna Sylvia, Danny D, Anna, and Johnny for joining. We talk about this future of sports in this live stream of Wait Time. Thank you very much, Boris. Tell us what you are up to in the next 20 seconds. So what is,
I am recording the It's Canon podcast tomorrow. It's going to be out tomorrow night. It's a podcast about anything and everything. We talk about comic books, movies, TV, real life events. Tomorrow, we're actually going to be talking about artificial intelligence. And we planned this episode weeks ago. And it's just perfect timing with everything that's been happening on social media. We're going to expand on, the AI robots going through social media posts and blocking them and things like that, and the effects that's obviously having in the world now. So we're going to be talking about that tomorrow, and you will be able to catch it on itscanonpodcast.com, anywhere that you stream podcasts, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a fun show. We talk about real life shit, and it's always a fun time.
amazing. Thank you very much, everyone who joined. And this is going to be on YouTube, Facebook, and also on Instagram for the next 24 hours, just on Instagram, but then YouTube and Facebook. You're good. Thank you very much, Boris. And until next time.